Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Couple of Nerds. I'm your host, DnDWife, and with me is my co-host and husband, Dungeon Master Eguile.
How's it going, everyone?
Welcome. So for today's segment, it's a Just Us segment where we're going to be introducing a very special part of our family, our cats.
Yeah, usually we take the time with Just Us to kind of share a little bit about us behind the scenes.
Our nerdy selves.
Right, a little bit more than just Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
So we figured nothing better than to kind of show the two that are, I imagine a few people have heard squawking in the background and various sounds and podcasts. But we figured, might as well let the proverbial cat out of the bag. Sorry, had to do it.
So we're going to be meeting our cats. We have two of them. They're Jenks, that's Jenks, and Ivy. The reason the name is kind of strange for Jenks is because it comes from a book series I love. It was just really fun, but we're going to be talking all about that today. How they join the family, their own special personality traits, how they're different from each other, and tips for living with cats in the apartment setting too.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of ways that you can integrate being a cat owner and living in the small space of an apartment.
Yeah.
Especially when in most cases, I don't personally recommend it, but don't let your cat outside in an apartment complex.
I wouldn't. We've had a few people who did that around here. It didn't end well.
So we've learned, and hopefully we can share some of those tips with us, and we can kind of share also the story of just how important they are to us.
Yeah. They've really become such a huge part of our lives. They're kind of our kids.
And so the first of ours, and the first one we actually have in our eldest is, and we refer to him as, his name is Jenks, but we do refer to him as Bubba's. So there might be a little back and forth with how we refer to.
Sorry, guys.
But it was he was the first one to adopt us.
Yeah, he really was.
And me specifically, as during this time I was living at home. I had pretty much lost everything besides, at that point, my fiance. Yeah. And so it was just kind of a tough point in my life. And I just remember playing in the room. I just kind of, was dark. I had my window open because it was hot. Yeah. And so I remember just looking over, and all I could see was this weird pink thing in the darkness. I couldn't understand what at first because it was freaking me out.
And noises.
Right. And I could start hearing something. And then I started to notice that, well, wait, there's something connected to this little pink thing. And I realized it was this jet black cat that all I was really seeing was its mouth as it was squawking through the window.
Yeah, the little pink tongue.
Oh, it was this tiny little kitten.
So cute.
And I just remember being sitting there just being am I really seeing this right now? And it's it must be some neighbor's cat because it's way too blasé. It's up against the window.
Yeah.
But by the time we got outside, it was clear that he was a stray.
He didn't have a collar. He looked unkempt. He looked like he'd been living rough for a while.
Right. I remember when we first got him, his paws were very mangled from either the hot concrete or damage. So we could tell that he was also, struggling to get by. And originally, this is my parents' house. I can't really just take
Bring
a cat. It's not my house.
Yeah.
And so we were, of course, putting out food. And at first it was across the street, but then of course it's a little closer, And then eventually he was just kind of living on the front patio stoop.
We got him a little box, set it all up.
Right. And so we really, wanted to have him, but it was tough. But then eventually, as it would always go, you start to kind of, sneak them indoors, and that kind of really started it.
Well, the bigger neighborhood cats were picking on him because he was tiny. So,
Yeah, and I think that was really the push too, because we were starting to see new injuries and all these other problems with him. And so, it was, and then, we had him in my parents' house, kind of hiding him. I mean, obviously, you can't hide that have a cat in someone's house, it was obvious, but they were tolerant of us having it. But obviously, this poor kitten is stuck into a room, let alone an apartment or a house.
A small room, it wasn't that.
And then there were some issues with, I think some of the dogs that my parents had. And so it really kind of gave us that push where it was okay, not only do we need to start a life together,
Jenks needs his own place,
but he needs his own place, and it's kind of is a weird way to say, but motivated us to really push to get that apartment together because at that point in our lives we were living very much apart. But I think it was very important that we had him there for kind of the beginning stages of us living together. He was kind of our third official roommate.
Yeah, it was really nice having him around, especially with like our crazy schedules. It was such a support, I guess, to have someone else I could spend time with it in case you were gone at work or something. I never felt alone at home.
Yeah, which is what I always was kind of hoping for, because it's like, that is tough, right? And it's for the two of us too. Like there would be times where I'm home alone, and honestly, I say this all the time, is like cats are great, just like dogs too. They're great like alarm systems.
Yeah, they can...
for right when they kind of react to something, you know it's probably something close by. So even I really always have loved having kind of cats around in that kind of environment. And also, being in an apartment, it's kind of tough to have a dog.
Yeah, and he's really been this wonderful, like, emotional support cat. Anytime I'm crying or, like, I don't feel well or something, like, he's always like, oh, what's wrong? And he, like, bumps me and, like, nudges my hands and stuff, make sure I'm okay. Or he comes and lays with me.
Yeah, he's definitely a little emotional support cat, unofficially.
Yeah.
He took that role himself. But, yeah, I mean, and as always, when it always comes with, like, pet ownership, and at this point, we had like just gotten married. We were newlyweds,
it was
and
all new.
And then, of course, as any person who has already just spent a bunch of money on their wedding and all this other stuff, he got sick, right? And that's always your biggest fear, especially when you're starting off your life. You kind of don't have a lot to your name, and now a loved one is injured. You got to do what you can.
It was really worrisome. At first it was just lethargic, but then he wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking, and then he wasn't moving much. So we were like, okay, got to go to the vet.
And I just remember, even in that situation, it wasn't even a question of how much. It was just, hey, we're going to do what we can, to help this guy. And it was, we had only had him maybe 9 months at that point.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter.
Said, we don't want to deal with this.
But for us, it didn't matter. He was already at that point just this kind of
part of our
creature.
family.
Yeah, right. Just this kind of, not necessarily a creature, but a part of our family. And really, his personality started to grow. Yeah. He has this, crazy obsession with hair.
Oh yeah, I tend to, keep my hair pretty long. And I just remember when I would hang it over the edge of the bed or something because it was wet, he would start playing with it.
Yeah, and he loves toes too. So anything that was hanging off the edge, it was like you're more than likely get a little kitty bite.
Yeah, a little paw.
Right. And so like we had him for a good bit of time, and he was just such an integral part of our family, and it was so nice just to have that idea of like, yeah, we don't have a guard dog, but we got a guard cat kind of taking care of things. And it really kind of shows that like what we really believe, because I'm very big on, adopting, finding strays and stuff like that. Yeah, they come with their own struggles, but I feel like that's a bigger deal. And not only that, but especially with cats. Cats find you.
You really do.
When you find that cat, you just know. And so like you really can't not answer the call. And I feel like Jenks was really that kind of push to kind of get not only me and us started, but really for me to get over that hump of everything that had happened at that point in my life. And it really kind of gave us all that kind of drive. He really was kind of the leader of the pack for a little while.
Well, he needed us and we needed him. And, it's the cat distribution system doesn't lie. There were a bunch of houses on that cul-de-sac that had their windows open and their lights on that he could have gone to, but he came to yours.
Yeah, I know. And that's, and, I think especially, and like the funny thing is, so like, obviously when I first found him, I'm in my parents' house, I'm on this futon. So just because we're separated, I kind of kept it in the couch mode because I didn't want to have it in a full bed and be alone. Yeah. But he got kind of used to sleeping on like the side of the couch. So now you always crack up because he kind of sleeps like a human stretched really out across the bed.
He loves pillows, guys. Yeah. He uses pillows.
So he kind of learned that from me because we're so young.
Oh, yeah. He also just loves cuddling. I think it's part of that sleeping with you in close quarters. He loves the pile.
Yeah. But like really when, we had that going on, it was so nice, but I felt like, really something was missing.
We thought that it would be unfair to have Jenks and have him stay home alone by himself while we went off to work.
Yeah, because it started to get to be that both of us were working so much that there really wasn't anyone home for long periods of time.
Yeah, we were freshly out of college and it was just go, get all the money you can because we got bills to pay and rent.
Yeah, I got to pay off a wedding.
Yeah, so, we really had to put in the time there, but we wanted to find a second cat to sort of compliment Jenks, to give him a little companionship.
And we kind of wanted it to, initially we wanted it to be on theme. So, we had the black cat, so we wanted like the long hair white cat.
Yeah, we kind of wanted the nice dichotomy there. I had for the longest time this idea.
Should have known it was never going to happen. But
yeah, and no, we found one. That's how we got Ivy. Yeah. We found a white kitten and we contacted the people and we're like, hey, we're interested. And they're like, oh, well, we just gave her away, but we have another one.
Yeah, and they didn't, yeah.
I am still so upset about this.
Yeah.
She was the runt of the litter, and they were just going to get rid of her because obviously nobody had wanted her. And she was
so small.
She was small. She could fit in the palm of my hand, guys. Not even the finger part.
And at that point, she was supposedly we didn't really understand because they were saying she was a few months old, and she looked like she had barely been birthed.
Yeah, she was so tiny. She could have gotten lost in the car, and we would have never found her.
They just had her in a shoebox full of kitty litter. And that was kind of all she was just resting in.
And the worst part is they were feeding her Vienna sausages. That is not okay.
Which, unfortunately leads me to think that that's why she's got such a smaller figure. She's a very, very tiny kitten.
Very small.
At this point, she's like 8 years old, and she still looks like maybe a year old cat body-wise.
She looks like a kitten.
But I think, unfortunately, a lot of that kind of caused it. And I remember, I also remember, we pulled into the parking lot, and, it's like, okay, hey, we don't know what this cat, don't get too attached. Yeah. And the instant you saw, I looked over at you, and it was like, okay, we're taking this cat. Because that was yours. That was the one where you just instantly knew, like, this was something you had to stop. You had to stop this.
I just couldn't leave her like that. And they were just going to get rid of her. I didn't know what that meant.
Right. Yeah, that was a little worrisome, too.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me that, hey, because we kind of walked away and discussed it for a bit. And you were just like, hey, we have to.
Right. Like, I don't know what they're going to do to her. They might just leave her, obviously. I don't think they're going to do the worst necessarily, but they could. And you don't know. And they're just going to leave her to her own devices. She was so tiny and defenseless.
Yeah. And I think that's what also kind of created her to be such a unique personality, too, compared to Jenks.
Yeah, I think being the runt and kind of maybe being picked on a little bit when she was younger might have caused her to be like more solitary. She tends to just stick to herself.
Yeah, and early when we had her, she was such a solo cat, and it wasn't until like I took a lot of time, kind of working, almost forcing her to interact with us by just kind of picking her up and holding her when I have to go do things around the apartment, or not letting her just sit alone and making her kind of sit on the couch with us. Yeah. And over time, that did kind of, I think she finally let go, and however a cat probably lets go of that kind of stress or whatnot, but there was definitely a shift to where now she's kind of just discovered that she can purr, because originally she didn't know how to purr.
She didn't know at all. It was crazy.
Which was kind of funny, or we just whatever reason. But she really has now come out, and she's quite a talker now. She's
the most vocal.
But she's definitely one to be like, even now as she's opened up, she's a very solo cat, and it's just kind of funny where Jinx is much more of a kind of a kitty pile and kind of cuddles like that. She very much hates that, and she's kind of laid claim to this kind of cabinetry above our fridge, where we inadvertently found that she had kind of created a little nest way up there. So we just let her kind of have her space, and it allows that verticality allows her to feel safe and protected.
It's her own little princess tower, and I love it. Because she really is. She's got a really big diva personality. She loves her space. She loves her comfort. And she also just doesn't want to be bothered sometimes.
Yeah, but she's one of those like cats too, where it's like she wants nothing to do with you, and then the moment you sit down and you get comfortable, she's on your lap and she just sits there
Yep.
like she does it all the time, and
Just makes herself at home.
and you just kind of you pet her lightly, and you don't make any fuss over it, because it is such a unique experience.
Yeah, and I think it's really shown how far she's come from that scared little tiny kitten she was when we first got her, and how you really worked really hard with her on socializing, making sure she felt comfortable.
And then always, like, when you get two cats, you always kind of want to introduce them slowly. And so we had her kind of, while we were at work, locked in our bedroom while, Jenks was allowed to roam the halls. And we let them slowly kind of get acclimated to one another, to where they would actually kind of stand each other. The only issue is that, obviously, because Ivy's so tiny and Jenks being this kind of big, stocky male, he kind of towers over her.
Yeah,
and
he was a tiny kitten, and we thought he was
anymore.
gonna stay at least medium, but Jenks is a pretty big cat.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that I kind of play with him rough a little bit, so he's kind of used to with me. So she wants nothing to do with that kind of play.
She will shut it down.
And so we get that where it sounds like all heck is breaking loose through the apartment, but it's really just her being so vocal of like not wanting to play.
Leave me alone.
And so but we find times if something happens, they are both the first two to cuddle up to each other for support.
Oh yeah, they like to pretend that they hate each other or that they can't stand each other, but as soon as there's any sort of danger or perceived issue, they immediately flock to each other like the little scared kittens.
And I think especially with like Ivy, it really kind of shows, and I know for you, like Jenks and Ivy are your first pets ever.
Yes, ever.
So that's like a big deal. And it also shows where, like I tell you, it's like, hey, sometimes it just takes a while for their personality. Just like humans you can't expect a human who's been tossed around, thrown away, all their brothers and sisters have been taken away.
Right.
You can't expect them in 2 weeks to just act like nothing happened. Sometimes you just gotta let them take some time. Don't ever just give yourself 6 months for a pet. It may take years, but if you keep working, you keep going that little extra mile, you'll eventually see like that true personality. And it did take a while for Ivy, but it was worth it.
Oh yeah, all that work and effort was worth it. And I just think it's funny that even though you found Jenks and I found Ivy, she's definitely a daddy's girl and he's definitely a mama's boy.
Yeah, I do find that like comical with how that ended up being like a switch between us and the two cats. But yeah, we've had them for quite a while. We've moved from apartment to apartment, and we've kind of learned a step or two of how to like kind of have them in an apartment, but not like enclosed.
Yeah, it's nice now because the apartment we currently have is a lot bigger than our first apartment, and our first apartment was super difficult to sort of give them space to roam.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath that was tiny.
I think it was 700 and something square feet total.
I honestly, I'm so terrible with the square footage stuff.
Yeah, it was small.
I'm a DM and I still struggle with like spatial awareness. It's terrible, but hey, you try.
But now we have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's a lot more spacious, and the cats have room to roam, to stay as separately as they want or as close as they want.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting too, because like especially with things nowadays is like there's a lot of ways to get things to kind of incorporate with your house, your apartment, that is both like cat or animal friendly, but also isn't just this like giant furry eyesore that it obviously is like, oh well, there's your cat tree, okay, yeah, it's in the way, it's gross. Right. And so we've kind of over the years have found ways to kind of integrate our cat furniture or toys that kind of make it look like they're a part of the aesthetic.
We try to follow a general like color aesthetic. So a gray is a big color for us as a
neutral
sort of base tone. Yeah.
But yeah, and it's also a lot of times, you got to let your cats kind of figure out where they want to go. Because we've made some changes in the apartment over time. And so sometimes like the room that they once had like pure occupancy of changes. But I find that if you just kind of let them spend a couple of weeks and just kind of watch them, and then that way, if instead of them finding like your clothes or a pile of something you don't want them in, oh, okay, that's where they like put a pet bed there.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of working with your pets to where they like to go, because sometimes you'll get a pet toy or a bed and you'll put it somewhere where you want it, and you're like, oh, well, they never use it, throw it away. I mean, they never go on it. Well, that's just because it might not be where they want it.
Right, yeah. They have very specific needs sometimes, and so it might work in one place where it doesn't in another. But you have to learn how to incorporate cat furniture into your area, however small or big it is. A little bit of that, is also thinking about what looks functional, what looks aesthetically pleasing in your area, and building off of that. And that's kind of where we went with the cat tree we have now, where it sort of matches the furniture and it doesn't look too out of place.
Plus, that's kind of like where you get your verticality, because man, do our cats like being up high.
Oh yeah, they both love heights.
So it's tough with like apartment living, and I don't really trust like a 3M command strip to kind of hold the a cat highway up on the top, and I dare not drill nails to lose my deposit.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to have just kind of a taller corner stand to where they do kind of get this feeling that they're surveying over the entire landscape, and it also, we found that once you get those kind of things, they really warmed up to guests and were around more because they had a place to kind of watch these mysterious humans, and they felt safe.
Yeah.
So it helped also make your cats feel a lot more visual, I feel like was a really important thing for us too, because, it's one thing for us to enjoy our cats, but it's also nice to have our cats feel that it gets comfortable, that they can be out at all times because it's their space too.
Honestly, that's how they've become such an integral part of like our D&D sessions, is because they're around everybody.
Yeah, and then obviously, living in small spaces, a lot of bad behaviors kind of develop, and it's tough because usually you mess up once, and a bad behavior can kick up for,
Months,
a pet discovers the kitchen sink and you leave out something once, and now they know that that's the place to go for food. And we've had our share of bad behaviors, which one we've been fighting for like the last couple of years, which is like this food aggression. Now, not violence, but more
bad.
Of like goblins that want to eat anything and everything that's not locked down.
And like they wait outside the door where like their food is stored for the next one.
Yeah, and we feed them on a regular pattern, so it's very much them playing at being the victims of not being fed as much as they wish. But it really makes it where a lot of times these bad behaviors, especially indoors, they're kind of propagated from ourselves, and so. The biggest thing with like pet ownership is just having good behaviors yourself, making sure the sink is empty, making sure stuff's not
dishes
out.
are out or food is left out.
If you drop something, pick it up, especially even with dogs and the misnomer of, they can just eat anything. A lot of times, a lot of stuff that we use in our homes is very dangerous to our animals. So you always kind of want to take that extra step. And so, there's other things like the traditional scratching of couches. But what we found is you got to give them something to focus those energies on, right?
So if you don't want them scratching up your couch, buy them plenty of scratching posts.
The cardboard ones work really well. Our little one loves anything cardboard. It's like her favorite thing.
And if they're not really into it from the get-go, just put a little bit of catnip in there and just walk away. Eventually they'll get all up in it, and before you know it, they'll be using them all the time.
Oh yeah, and it's just those alternatives. And also, again, it comes down to a lot of our own behaviors, right? So a lot of times, especially in our early times, we're so tired, we get home, we don't want to do anything, and then our cats are hyperactive, they want to do stuff. But if you kind of take like 20-30 minutes, run them through the apartment, it definitely calms them, it gets a lot of that energy out, and that way, because they are really cooped up in the apartment, you have to take that into account. And so again, a lot of those, any kind of active or hyperactive behavior is just spawned from just them wanting attention, and they find that, hey, this is the only way I get it.
And if you don't have time to play for a long time with your cat, the other alternative is to buy them plenty of toys so that they can just play with themselves. They can toss them around.
Oh yeah,
it's super
and
fun
like
to watch them too.
Pet toy technology has gotten insane nowadays.
It's pretty advanced.
You can pretty much find anything. You can be sitting in your office throwing treats to your pet and playing with them with different little AI robots and stuff. So I think that's a really cool way to kind of keep connected. I from time to time I've used like our Alexa cameras, and I've checked in on the animals, and they kind of look all weird at the camera, not knowing what's going on. Hey, You know, when you're you own pets, it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah, you gotta get a little creative with how you interact sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, and then the other problem is obviously, you trap them indoors and they're kind of always staring out the window.
Right,
So
they want to go outside.
yeah, so we try to find ways to try to bring the outdoors indoors.
Yeah, we live in an apartment complex, so we can't really have our cats go out all the time. There's dogs, there's other stuff. We have a lot of geese, giant geese,
Yeah, they're mean
in the area, and they do go after the cats, so we really don't want them outside. But a good way to mitigate that is to kind of bring some of that environment inside. The way we do that is by growing our own cat grass.
Yep, little pots of
Oh
them.
yeah, they love it. They go bananas over it. As soon as they see it, they start squawking. They want it. They clamor to be let outside so that they can have their cat grass.
Oh yeah, it's really important, to give them those little extra things. Plus, it helps them out in their overall digestion.
Yeah, it really does.
And it kind of and honestly, at this point, we've created little monsters because I mean, they see kind of any kind of grass-like thing as something to eat, so you have to be careful with the items you don't want them to eat onto.
Yeah, because we have things like chives, garlic chives. They look a little bit like the cat grass.
Yeah, no onions, no garlic, people. Nothing like that for cats. It's very toxic. And so we're always kind of afraid. We grow our own herbs and stuff, so we always kind of have to keep track of them. So we tend to do clippings so that we can kind of control
how much they eat.
But
too.
Man, do they go crazy for that?
Oh yeah, they love it, and it just goes to kind of keep them active as well. Going after the cat grass. Another couple of treats that we do is we take little cat treats and we hide them around the apartment to give them something to hunt.
Now you have to distract them for a little bit. So usually like one of us will play with them, keep their attention on the other side of the house, while the other one basically like hides the Easter eggs all through the apartment.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's like having Easter every other day.
Well, it's entertaining too because you get to watch them kind of stalk around because once they catch the scent of the treats, they suddenly start looking around. Now ours have gotten a little too smart for their own good, so sometimes when they get fed, they'll wander the casual spots we put them. So we kind of have to keep moving them around to keep that kind of drive going.
Yeah, you can't always put them in the same place. You got to switch it up every now and then. And then when you have switched it up, put them back in the original places you did to throw them off. It's super fun.
Oh yeah,
and they love it.
Oh yeah, right. And it facilitates their drive, their hunter's instinct.
Yep.
And it gets them running around the apartment for a little while and usually tuckers them out.
Oh yeah, they nap so good right after. It's their favorite time.
But I mean, no matter what, at the end of the day, they're such an integral part of our lives, and they've become part of the family. They've become part of the Couple of Nerds crew. Yeah. Because like we said, you probably hear them in the back of the audio from time to time as we try to keep them out, but they want to be heard. So we'll probably give them an opportunity one of these days to get on the mic.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We could probably do so. We have a couple of shorts for them, so we'll be able to share their stories.
Keep an eye on them. I'm sure they'll appear in the background of various photos and images because they're everywhere.
But today we've shared the stories of Jenks and Ivy, our wonderful cats, and how we make apartment living work for them. That way they don't feel too cramped.
Yeah, because it really is kind of a multi-stage thing. Like they're going to provide so many great benefits, but you got to do a little bit to help them out too so that they have, the proper environment to flourish and grow and not just kind of be little fat cats sitting on a couch all day.
Yeah. And, we hope that the story of how we found Jenks and Ivy, really inspired you to rescue your own kitty out there if you don't have one already.
If you haven't been adopted, your cat is out there waiting to adopt you sooner or later. But
absolutely.
Don't look it in the eye. Sometimes it really is an opportunity for, a lot of things to happen for you by just, helping out a little stray.
Yeah, being open to that, or being kind one day. It really helps.
But as always, your reviews and feedbacks help us. So keep sharing out all of that feedback to us. Let us know with a like, subscribe, a review, share us with a friend, or listen to it twice. Anything helps us, and we are always greatly appreciative of everything you guys do out there.
Yep. Like, review, and subscribe. All of it helps. And if you'd like to join more of the conversation with us, please join us at the Couple of Nerds Discord. We love to hear from you guys. We're on there all the time. We also have some of our players on there all the time that are live streaming and doing all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, and keep an eye out for the Bard's Haven chat room. That's where we usually post our pictures of our kitties out and about.
Yeah.
So if you want any kind of to see the kitties themselves in their little zany annex, please check it out there on our Discord.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you there as well. Thank you so much, guys, and have yourselves a good night.
Have a good one.